Okay, so I want to thank everyone for joining us here today. This is a grown-in webinar. Small operators compare notes in different states. And before we get started with Pete, Micah, and Adam, I'm going to talk about our sponsors who are very graciously helping us have this great event today. Seed to Sale Funding places loans and debt capital exclusively for cannabis projects through relationships with over 20 US-based debt providers, including private lenders, investment funds, and REITs. We've provided over $45 million in loans for a variety of cannabis grow and retail projects. And then with national experience with high-end retail and secure industrial facilities, Englewood Construction is a practical choice for cannabis facility construction. Our stable of diverse and equitable partners lets Englewood Construction create your vision anywhere in the United States. So I want to thank the three of you for being here today. Let me run through who our panelists are. And when I say your name, give us a wave. So Micah Siegal is the General Counsel Administrative Officer for Pure Brands, a Michigan-owned and headquartered vertically integrated cannabis cultivator and retailer. The company operates 6 medical and adult use retail stores in Michigan and operates over 80,000 square feet of cultivation space. Pure Brands is currently building out a new 65,000 square foot facility, which will include a retail logistics hub, a processor, as well as tissue and pheno-hunt laboratories. Adam Diltz is the Chief Operating Officer of Illicit Brands, a cultivator in Kansas City, Missouri. Prior to joining Illicit, Adam was the Verano Holdings Nevada State Director and Vice President of Cultivation Operations. And then Pete DeCaro. Caro is the founder and CEO of Resinate, formerly Medicinal Alternatives in June of 2015 in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is a cultivator with three dispensaries across the state. Under Mr. DeCaro's leadership, Resinate is amongst the most technologically advanced facilities in Massachusetts. Thank you again for the three of you being here today. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off with a question, and I'd like you to each answer this question and talk a little bit about how maybe your company's size and facility is a little different, and how you relate from maybe much larger companies or even much smaller ones. So, Micah, can you start off by telling us how often do you interact with state regulators, and what's that relationship like?
So we have, I won't say daily, but probably weekly interaction with our state regulators. It's up right now. We just went through a major product recall, statewide product recall, one of the testing labs, the largest testing lab here
in Michigan.
In Michigan, that tests 70% of the flower that's currently on the market, had to recall all the product that they tested during a 3-month time period. So now is not very representative of the amount of interaction we have with our regulators. But I'll say this: our primary cultivation facility is about 100 yards from the offices of our regulator. So we we share a parking lot with our regulator. So we do have we do have a fair amount of interaction with our regulator, and it's generally pretty positive. It's a bunch of folks that are learning about the plant and learning about retail. It's folks that don't have a whole lot of experience in regulating the product that they're regulating. So there's a lot of there is some wiggle room. They're willing to work, and as long as you don't get sidetracked with them or crossways with them, I should say, it's been a pretty positive experience.
So Adam, can you talk about your experience in Missouri?
Yeah, I mean, in Missouri, I feel like, because we're still in that first year and a half or so of the industry, the state's been so busy, I guess, getting everyone up and running. So we were the, I think, second or third cultivation in the state to get approved to operate. Our 5 stores were among the first probably 30 or so dispensaries in the state to get operating. So Not as much as interaction as I've had with regulators in other states. Once everything's more established and they're doing their routine inspections. That being said, I mean, yeah, we're constantly in communication with them. I've always stressed to the team that they're a partner of ours. We got to have a good relationship with them. Like Micah had said, sometimes you're assisting them on kind of learning and understanding exactly what it is they're doing, because a lot of them are very new to this. But yeah, I mean, as far as communication, really, it's right now it's more on the on the labeling side of things. The Missouri's had some changes in the way that they or I guess changes in interpretations of the way that products are supposed to be labeled, or different partners of yours at the retail level will, their compliance officer will say, hey, it needs to be labeled this way, and your in-house compliance person says no, it needs to be labeled this way. So then you get the state involved to kind of be the hey, this is the right way. So that's really the extent of it right now. I would expect it to increase now as most of the licenses here in the state are getting to the point where they're commenced. So they'll start doing more of their routine communication rather than just your opening and the conversations that you have when you're getting everything up and running.
Pete, what's it like in Massachusetts?
I think you found three guys of similar interests, which is pretty interesting when it comes to talking about regulators. So I guess I'll say I'll echo their sentiments here. We speak with our regulators on a monthly basis, and I completely agree with Micah and Adam on this. It is a process. Outside of your monthly inspections and dealing with things like labeling, we're also seeing issues that are arising probably out of what's happening with other inspections. We've seen the regulators spend more time on things like sanitization and cleaning protocols, all in light of COVID. We've had, I won't call them strict, but we've implemented and we've been asked to implement all types of protocols to make sure that we stagger employee, entrances and shifts and break times and things of that nature. So the CCC, the regulators in the state of Massachusetts, has really gotten involved in a lot of the way that we execute strategies like that. So I'd like to say that we're communicating on a monthly basis just about inspections, but the truth is we get a lot more involved in things pertaining to COVID, all of the cleaning and sanitization protocols associated with it. And I think, and Adam, I'm sure you're probably seeing this too down in Kansas City, we're driving this industry, right? So there are events, there are things that we do in our retail establishments, new product lines, things like that, where we engage in a lot of dialogue with the regulators before even rolling out these types of events, just to make sure that they understand the trend, the path that we're leading the industry into. We've had a couple of events in the store that were more educational, that received a lot of publicity. And rather than host the events and see what happens, we've engaged the regulators so that they understood these types of things were coming, so that they could participate and we could make sure that we're operating by all the right rules. So it's at least monthly, and the subjects have been pretty far ranging, from inspections to these types of social issues as well.
Thank you, guys. So before I go any further, I want to let our audience know, if you have if you have questions for our three panelists, or you have any general comment you'd like to share, we have a chat, and you can add questions to the chat or to the Q&A area, and then I'll be asking questions as we go along that you have as well. So let me ask you guys, just out of curiosity, what's the average price of wholesale flower in your state? Micah, you want to start?
Sure. It's dependent on the time of the year and the quality. There's flower available from some of the large MSOs that grow, very large concentrated operations, less than $1,000 a pound, all the way up to our average sales price is around $2,600 to $2,800 a pound. and then it depends on packaging. But during Croptober, when Michigan is a big outdoor growing state, it's a rec state where people can grow at home, can grow 5 plants at home. So it goes up, it goes down, but that's essentially the brackets.
And Adam, what's the prices like in Missouri?
It's a little bit all over the map. I think right now there's 40 of the 60 licenses approved to operate. Of those 40, probably 20 to 25 are putting product out. We hold a top shelf price point. We sell based off volume anywhere from 3,900 a pound up to 4,500 a pound right now. We sell pretty much everything though wholesale by the eighth, by the prepackaged eighth. So we're in that $30 to $35 range per eighth. But there is product available, in the $20 to $25 range as well. So top shelf, like I said, you're looking anywhere from 37 to 4,500 a pound, and then there's a decent amount of product out there for closer to the $28 to $3,200 a pound range.
And Pete?
I remember the glory days, Adam, of 3,745. That was a lot of fun. Our market is close to Michigan at this time. The state of Massachusetts allows households to grow up to 12 plants per household. So that certainly impacts the number of consumers that visit dispensaries in our state. But we've seen the prices historically be closer to that 4,000 a pound. To more recently, we're seeing the same thing with the larger MSOs. We're seeing the price per pound as low as $800-900 a pound for bulk material, and upwards to $3,800-3,900 a pound for prepackaged premium material.
So, it's interesting for me. I've visited dispensaries in each of your states and seen a wide variety of products and the choices that the people have that are all very different. And I'm curious to know, from each of you, what's the fastest growing product, or what's the most popular product that you guys have in each of your states, or each of your businesses that you're selling in your dispensaries. Adam, can you start off?
Yeah, I mean, here I would say premium flower is still kind of king, but it's different. You look at our dispensaries, it does do about that 50-50 split between extracted products and flower. Flower still kind of commands that top dollar. Here the market's still I would call it an immature market. So dabbable concentrates are really only about anywhere, depending on our 5 stores, anywhere from 4 to 6% of sales. So it's a lot of vapes, edibles, and flower. Pre-rolls, vapes, flower, and edibles. That's the biggest chunk of what I think any dispensary in the state right now is selling.
How about you, Pete?
Flower is still 60 to 70% of sales, but I will say the beverages in the last year took off. We've seen more brands enter the market. We've had a great deal of success with beverages, which I'd categorize as one of the more unique product lines. In the concentrate space, we're seeing live products emerge a lot more today. We've had a few that have been in the market for like the last year, but we're seeing a little bit more competition in that area. Infused pre-rolls are really taking off more now than ever. So, to Adam's point, I mean, flower is still king here, but the beverages and the infused products and the live products are becoming a little bit more front and center, and those are taking off.
Mm-hmm. And how about you, Micah?
Very, very similar experience. I think in our own shops, we're known for our flower, and so we tend to run about 65-35, 60-40 in terms of flower to infused products. Beverages is a really exciting up and coming product segment that we're excited to start carrying in our shops. We think some form of beverages is probably going to make up a quarter of our sales in a couple of years. I think it's going to be a really great gateway product for new consumers. So we're excited about that. But yeah, it's about 65-35, but our overall product mix, what we sell is almost all entirely flower. We white label carts through another processor at this point.
That's really interesting. So I want to ask you guys about banking options in each of your states. If you had to change banks today, do you feel like you'd have enough options or a good number of options in order to feel like, maybe it's not as many options as you might have as a consumer, but do you feel like you would have enough options that you'd have some real choice? Pete, can you start that off?
Yeah, we're fortunate. We have a number of banking institutions in the market where, for several years we didn't have many options. We had one or two, but now it's becoming more abundant, which is nice to see. But as we evaluate other states, we're seeing that same bottleneck occur in some of these newly emerging markets. But in Massachusetts, it's pretty stable.
Okay, and Micah, how about in Michigan?
Yeah, we have about a couple dozen banks and credit unions, state chartered, that are in the banking game. We've been with the credit union. It was one of the first to jump in Michigan a couple of years ago. And it's the banking services offered are still very basic. It's checking, deposits. We have armored car service from our shops. It's very basic banking. I'd love to be able to go into a bank and establish a relationship and get a line of credit as if I were any other business. But we're not quite there yet in Michigan. But yeah, we've got plenty of choice. And there's enough competition now that, if you're big enough, you can kind of name your price. It's still, you're paying more than if you were a normal business, but.
Yeah, and this is an interesting question that Jesse Taylor asks. And just to follow up with that, Micah, do you find your banking partners are competitively priced and capable of scaling up as you grow?
Yeah, so our current bank is a single branch credit union. And it's, would I like a larger bank? Sure. Would I like more services? Yeah, but I'm also able to text message with the CEO of my bank if any issue comes up. So there is personal service there, and that's pretty hard to put a price on. So, there's trade-offs, but the pricing is, I'm paying more than I'd like to, but they've got a lot of compliance obligations, and I get that.
Adam, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think banking gets talked about, and it almost, people feel like it's a bigger issue in this industry than it actually is. When we were raising money for this, I feel like that was almost the number one concern. Talking to investors is like, well, how are you going to bank, and how am I going to get my money, and how am I going to make sure, the money doesn't, get seized or something. So I think we're well beyond that. Kind of the same thing. We have quite a few options actually here in Missouri. We actually were with our bank able to get a line of credit here in Missouri, which was definitely a first for me, having done this in a few states. But yeah, I mean, same thing. You would like to have more options. You'd like to have a little bit, I guess you'd say, more competitive pricing. Paying what we pay for essentially checking accounts is, when you tell people, other business operators in other industries, they definitely give you a wide-eyed response, like, you're paying what? But yeah, we understand, and kind of like Micah said, we do have a relationship with the bank. We're able to, like you said, shoot a text to to a few members of the board at the bank, and it is, I guess, in a sense, concierge banking. But yeah, I mean, overall, there's nothing too much to complain about. It's it is what it is. But it seems like every day, there's more banks here in Missouri kind of getting in line to take on cannabis customers.
So all three of you are not only cultivators, but also have your own dispensaries. And I'm curious, as you operate your business, how much of your work is what it is that you sell to your own versus sell through your own dispensaries versus selling to, other folks out there in a wholesale market. Um, can each of you answer to that? Micah, can you start off with that?
Sure. From our cultivation facilities, our stores eat up about a third of what we produce. Everything else we wholesale. As a practical matter, our niche is sort of at the high end of the market. So, our cost structure is such that I can, if I want to put a $20 eighth on my shelf or a $25 eighth on my shelf, probably makes sense for me to source that from, one of my noble competitors rather than discount my product when I can sell it wholesale for better. So yeah, it's about 30% of our growing capacity goes in our own shops. Everything else goes out into the market.
Mm-hmm. Adam, can you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, so we have 5 dispensaries. We're currently producing about 12 to 1,500 pounds a month of like prepackaged flour. Each of our dispensaries take about 15 pounds a month. So that's about 75 pounds of the 1,200 to 1,500 pounds. So not a ton. More of our extraction products or manufactured infused products from our facility. I'd say a higher percentage goes to our own stores there, the gummies and edibles and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's, closer to 80%, 85% is going, going elsewhere. So our products carried in about 150, 151, I think, dispensaries around the state right now. So most of it is outside sales.
And Pete?
Yeah, we're about 50-50. We're pretty close. 55-45, in that range, or our stores to wholesale. So it's been a pretty healthy balance. We're in about 85 dispensaries across the state of Massachusetts so far.
So, and so that's an interesting segue into a question that we have from Morgan Sweeney in the audience, which is, how would you characterize the wholesale market in your state? What's that like? I mean, are there people that you can work through that are wholesalers exclusively, or are you managing all of that yourselves? Does it feel like there is some transparency into what that market is like for you, or are you kind of swimming through the murk as you're going through that, as you're trying to figure out pricing and product availability and that sort of thing? Adam, can you start with that?
Yeah, here again, going just because it's so new, it's, I would say we're, in a football analogy, we're at like the 5-yard line here in this industry. So it's changing every day. Pricing, I think, like I said, we were able to get out and open very quickly with a really good brand and really quality products. So, we were able to kind of get on shelves relatively easily. Now we are hearing and we are feeling a little bit more of the competition coming. And then of course, which is just, I feel like normal is for people, to just come in with a significantly lower price points, just to kind of, as they, I guess, I would say are later to the game. Their strategy is to just come in at a lower, cheaper price point. So, that's something that the sales team and me grapple with daily. But yeah, I mean, it's consistent, I would say, to other new markets that I've been in. As there's more options and more brands and out of state brands, large brands that, do licensing deals in all these different states come on and have that brand familiarity. There's more competition out there, but it's a good market. Missouri, a year and a half in, has about 170 some thousand registered patients, which is doing a lot better than people thought it would do. Now it's now we're working on the ballot initiative to gather signatures and hopefully get an adult use bill on the ballot here in November, and that's that will kind of change the whole market over again. So
that's right. Missouri is working towards having a ballot initiative in November for adult use, and there's 2 different groups that are trying to get that on the ballot. Pete, can you talk about what wholesale's like in Massachusetts?
Yeah, so for us right now, we do not have a distributor model in place. So wholesalers are working directly with retailers. We are handling all aspects of it, from sales through delivery in-house. We also are allowed to do, as a medical operator, we're also allowed to do home delivery, and recreational delivery has just opened. So the state of Massachusetts has recently created a license called an ADO, an adult delivery operator, where they are permitting those operators to procure large amounts of material like a distributor and sell those recreationally to consumers at home. That's a new model that will begin to open up a slightly different segment. But for us, we're working directly with dispensaries across the state for the most part. I think those in Massachusetts, similar to Adam and Micah's business, we're a premium flower provider. So for us, we've been fortunate in getting those products on the shelves. However, in last year alone, we saw a 50% increase in plant capacity alone in the state of Massachusetts. So from January to December, staggering high number of capacity came online. And we still are looking ahead to 2022. We're looking at another 300 to 350 operators coming online in terms of cultivators and product manufacturers. So we're seeing a market that has relatively narrow, that had what I'd categorize as products at different value points, in terms of their quality and price points. And now we're seeing a lot more saturation coming in the market. So, we're prepared for it. We anticipate that there'll be a greater deal of competition. But for us as a wholesaler, we're dealing directly with retailers, and the market's still healthy.
Micah, what's it like in Michigan?
So to return to your question, we're kind of flying in the dark. Our regulator issues a monthly report describing sales in the wholesale and retail channels. The wholesale sales numbers aren't especially useful because there are a lot of operators like us, everybody on the call here, that are vertical. They own their own provisioning or their own dispensaries. So, sometimes those prices are inflated for 280E purposes. But, by and large, like everybody on the panel and everybody probably on the call here knows, this is an industry where everybody talks and you get a pretty good sense of where everyone is at pricing wise per pound, at least in the wholesale market. And then of course the retail market, that's all out in the open. So yeah, it's an interesting market. The largest market in the state by far is Detroit. Detroit is still medical only. There's a lawsuit that's holding up rec in Detroit. But we've partnered with one of the largest retail operators in the state, probably the largest in Detroit. So we do pump out a lot of medical flower to them. And then there are 2 big trade groups in the state. There's the group that's made up mainly of all the big MSOs. And then there's the smaller operator group. We're in the latter group, and that's a pretty tight community. So if we need channels to sell flower to, we target our partners in the MICIA, which is the group of smaller operators. So, and then, like I said, everyone talks. You kind of get a sense for pricing and what the market will bear. Also depending on season, and that's pretty much what we run with. And we do all of our sales in-house. We have a full-time salesperson, and do our packaging, our shipping, all that. No wholesalers that I know of. Yeah.
So here's a question from Doug Guy in the audience. Pete, if you can answer this one first. What challenges have you faced with the labor pool in supporting your operational needs? You have a lot of openings?
we live in interesting times, right? So we do have a lot of openings. I would say we've been fortunate, though, as a small operator. We invest a great deal in our staff. Our turnover has been pretty low. We've made a very concerted effort to make sure that staff has been properly taken care of, that they have proper employment progression so that they can see financial advancements in their career, whether it's through advancement in job responsibility or through financial advancement. We've created a pretty good structure. With us, COVID has hit pretty hard. So, right now, it's been difficult to find people, just because I feel as though there's still a large audience of people that are preferring not to return to the workforce until we see some of these. We're somewhat in the red right now until we see some of these peaks go away. But it's been a challenge, and I think for us the key that has really helped us be successful in that is really focusing on customer retention more than employee retention more than anything.
Adam, can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, almost the same. Our entry level pay is very competitive. We do have quite a bit of incentive programs, and we're pretty strong on the benefit side as far as what we cover on health insurance and all that. But yeah, I mean, it's been different this year. Obviously COVID makes it really tough. Around the holidays, it seemed like people were even more cautious, even if they just being in close contact with people, they seemed more cautious because I think they knew they were going to be around their grandparents, later or whatever. So, we have about 150 people at our grow facility. We had a few weeks straight. We're kind of on the tail end of it now, where we were having upwards of 20 to 30 people calling out every day or missing work. And then the workforce has changed a little bit. The younger generation, seems to, want more faster. And so it's been a challenge. It's been different from, building these, being a part of big facilities, kind of all over the country with my previous employer. It's just been different. I think COVID, the lockdowns when those were all occurring, and I think, you look at a lot of our baseline employees, they were ones that weren't working for quite a while. So then they come back to work, and they have certain expectations about what that's going to be. And I always tell people too, this is a hard job, when you're working in a cultivation facility. It's a lot of cleaning, a lot of, it's farming, but it's indoors, and unfortunately, you just get a lot of people that don't, even when you tell them that, they don't listen to it. They think that it's going to be like what they see in the movies, where there's people just jamming out to Bob Marley, smoking joints and squirting plants with a spray bottle. And, and it's definitely not that. So, when they come in and you start holding them accountable to attendance policies and job performance, policies and all that stuff, you tend to get a mixed bag of reactions. But I think overall we have a much lower turnover than when we started. We went from kind of our phase one of our facility was a small 9,000 square foot building, and then we built out a 76,000 square foot building. So we went from 20 employees to 150 employees kind of overnight. And in that kind of mad dash, just kind of did a quick mass hiring, and ended up with probably a decent amount of people that you wouldn't have had if you had taken the time to really scrutinize and make sure that you had all the right people in there. So we went through a big kind of turnover early on, but we're kind of hitting our stride now, and I think we have a great team that I'm really happy they're all there, and they crush it for us. So yeah, where we're at today is a good place.
And Micah, how are things for you?
Really similar experience to what Pete and Adam have described. it's the interesting thing is it's very easy to get candidates. So I came to this company from the manufacturing world, and finding folks that are willing to work in a hot factory making car parts is very different than finding people to work in a cultivation facility working making cannabis. And so we get a lot of candidates, but then you got to spend a fair amount of time separating the wheat from the chaff, because there are a lot of misconceptions. It is hard work, especially if you work. All of our trimming we do by hand. We don't have any machines doing our trimming, so that's tedious work. And we've got we have turnover in our processing room, we have turnover in our retail. But yeah, like Adam described, we went from a couple smaller, less than 10,000 square foot facilities to one big facility overnight, and did a big mad rush of hiring, saw inevitably a big rush of turnover, and now we've kind of leveled back off again. But we're constantly hiring. We're looking for people that are productive, that have a good attitude, that show up to work, that don't expect everything on day one, and we're having some luck finding those folks.
I have a couple of really specific technical questions, and I'd like each of you to just give me a quick 3-5 word answer to the questions if you can, and I'll start with Micah. How do you handle documenting your cleaning and sanitation? Do you partner with an outside source, or do you do that internally?
We do it all internally. So we have a couple, we call them housekeeping staff, that are, basically working every of our grow rooms, cleaning, following a specific protocol. We track it all through a web platform called monday.com. And then we have, our cultivation techs are also working on a schedule to clean the floors, with the squeegee machines and so forth. I mean, yeah, keeping the facility clean, especially since we're walking our partners through and our customers through on a pretty regular basis. We kind of want every square inch to be buttoned down. And our experience with bringing in third-party contractors has always been kind of iffy. We're right now we're working to bring our security in-house for our retail, just because I'm tired of waking up security guards. It's that kind of thing too with cleaning. Cleaning is just so essential that you kind of have to do it. I think you kind of have to do it on your own.
And Adam, how about you guys?
Yeah, so we kind of do a hybrid of both. We've always done our own in-house cleaning, and cleaning to me kind of falls under the compliance side of things, because you are regulated from the Department of Health here, and as Pete was saying early on, cleanliness and those kind of processes are very important to the regulators. So really just kind of a part of our processes are keeping the facilities clean, keeping your utensils clean each step of the way. Like I said, I tell people when we're interviewing or when my guys are interviewing people, for the cultivation team, almost 75-80% of your job is cleaning. Now on the flip side, we did do a cool thing here. One of the kind of interesting things, and kind of what we built our brand Illicit around, was kind of the hypocrisy of the industry, and of the kind of things that people convicted of dealing with this plant early on are unallowed to do. So in Missouri, for instance, you can't, and I'm sure and it's probably similar in the other states, but if you've been convicted of a crime, of a felony, whether you can't then work in this industry. So we actually partnered with a guy who started his own cleaning company. He was a convicted ex-felon. He was unable to get his agent card. So through essentially not a loophole, but working with the state, a contractor, we're allowed to have contractors without their agent cards, but we have to renew a contract every 13 days. So if it's a contractor more than 2 weeks, they have to get their agent card. So with Adam's company, Complete Cleaning Concepts, we put together a proposal with the state. And so we actually have a group of 4 or 5 ex-felons that would normally not be allowed to work in the facility that come in on a nightly basis, and they kind of do the deep clean nightly. So they'll wipe down all the walls in the facility. They do the restrooms and the employee break areas and kind of that office cleaning style stuff, not kind of your general cleaning it through your processes. But yeah, so his group, they're a group of ex-felons and they've been great. And our marketing team has worked with them and them being able to say now that they're approved to clean, a highly regulated cannabis facility has led to a lot of business for him. So now he has a contract with an elementary school, and he's got a contract, I think, with another like medical health facility. So that's been a cool program. But without that, we definitely would have kept everything in house.
And Pete, how about you? How do you deal with sanitation?
We keep it in house. It's all part of the daily operation. I think it's a blend of both. I mean, number one, we keep it in house. We make it a part of the workflow, like Adam alluded to. Departmentally, all the production areas, it's part of the day-to-day effort. It's startup and it's close. But then for ambient conditions and things like that, we do have our custodian, our cleaning crew that comes in and maintains the rest of the facilities.
Okay, and this one I'm hoping is going to be a fast question. Starting again with you, Micah, is bulk or prepackaged flower most popular? What are retailers asking for?
Deli style is still very common in Michigan. So, and that's most of what we sell at this point. We do some prepackaged right now. We're actually ordering. Right before I got on the call, we were reviewing some new bag designs. So we are getting ready to get into prepackaged. So I couldn't speak statewide, but for us, it's 95/5 bulk versus prepack.
Adam?
I wish. No, we're about 90% prepackaged. Which is it's a massive undertaking. Like I said, luckily I've been a part of it at other facilities where states almost required it to be prepackaged. But yeah, I think we have, of the 150 some customers, I think maybe 4 or 5 of them do deli style. Other than that, it's all prepackaged. We do prepackaged eighths and quarters. We did grams for a little bit, but that's just turns into a headache. So mostly prepackaged.
And Pete?
Yeah, we're mostly prepackaged here. I'd say it's closer to maybe 90/10 right now, but it's a growing segment in the state.
Okay. So I want to thank you all very much. We're just about out of time, and you guys have been terrific panelists to have here today. I think it's been really interesting to get these very broad, very different markets and perspectives from each of you. I hope you had as much fun as I did. And I want to thank our sponsors today for helping us do this: Seed to Sale Funding and Englewood Construction. And also I want to ask everyone to come to our next webinar, which is going to be on February 17th. The topic is, how's legal delivery going? You can sign up at grownin.com events. Micah Siegal, Adam Diltz, Pete DeCaro, thank you guys very much. Really appreciate having you here today.
Thanks for having me.